Hey friends, welcome to Bokeh, a podcast exploring the ever-blurring lines between the personal and business lives of professional photographers. This is your host, Nathan Holritz, and I'm bringing you a special episode of the Bokeh Podcast today called Workflow Wednesday. During these special edition episodes, myself and my co-hosts will focus on helping you develop more efficient daily and weekly workflows around post-production, communication, task and project management, time management, file and image management, and yes, the list does go on. We're going to save you an incredible amount of time in your work week, and we promise not to be too nerdy. This podcast is brought to you by Photographers Edit, custom image editing for the professional photographer. Just visit photographersedit.com. Indeed, we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Bokeh Podcast and our special series, Workflow Wednesday. Hello to Rich and Heather and to Haylee.
Hey.
It is Wednesday, and it is in Chattanooga, when we have like a half inch of snow, it's also referenced as a blizzard. So we had a blizzard last night.
Yep.
Schools were delayed today.
We
how
barely
does it
survived.
work for homeschool? Do you guys delay as well?
No, not really. No, I mean, but they did go outside and play for just a little bit, or at least one of them did. And then the rest of the day we just went around delivering Christmas goodies to some really cool vendors that we work with. So
that's cool. Is that something that you do every year?
We try. Well, I wouldn't say we do it every year.
But I mean, like the day before, we make some homemade goodies. None of this like, oh, I can buy it in a store. No. We go on Pinterest. We do our homework. We like what can survive. Like we normally do. We've done cookies in the past, but now we realize that cookies like we would make them the day before, they kind of get a little stale. They're not as fresh, you know. So what did we make? We made
Rich made some, and I don't use the word epic lightly. They are salted caramel.
She used epic for me.
Oh, you just got the finger, Rich. Hold on.
Oh.
By the way, for those of you listening, and I don't mean the middle finger. She was just, this was for the audio only. This is also Facebook Live. We're on video, and Heather just gave the just a moment finger to Rich.
I do like the thing that you do to a toddler who's interrupting you. Like
she didn't do that from the very first day I ever met her. She's done that before.
That's true.
It's insane.
Does that mean that you've been consistently interrupting her conversation from the day that you met her?
I get excited, and then and then like she'll and I'll be like, I want to like tell her what I'm saying, and then and I can't wait for her to finish her thought, you know, and then she'll like put her leg or her arm or hand gently on my leg to be like, hey, I like a teacher with a little kid who I can just like, hey, I know that you're there. Just let me get my thought out, and then I'll hear you. You know, and so she's done that to me since literally the first day I met her, and January 26th, 2003.
That's true.
And
wow.
And so the very first day I actually laid my eyes on her. And that's a whole nother story, but anyway.
That's a story for a different kind of podcast.
But talk about electricity, just shooting through me when she touched my leg. That first day, I'm like,
that first time that she told you to stop interrupting you.
This is it. Yep. Apparently it worked because we've been married for 15 years, very happily. Right?
Anyway, yes. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry, I did not give my verbal affirmation.
She's like, whatever, you know. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Wow.
There was an awkward pause there.
I didn't get my cue.
Exactly,
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
No, I'm just thinking salted caramel Rice Krispie treats. That's what's on my
mind. Caramel
they
Rice
were
Krispie treats.
So good. So we spent all morning long delivering happiness to some of our favorite vendors in the city, and took the day off school. So the kids played in the snow a little bit, and then we went and we did that. And I'm like, you know what?
What else do I make?
This is the School of Life. It's called the School of Life, and it's called running a business and networking. And the kids get that once in a while.
Yep.
Because that's more valuable than
it's entrepreneurship 101.
You know?
Networking.
We have to do our school most days, but not all the days. So
networking with Rice Krispie treats. Wait, did you make a second dessert as well, Rich?
He did. He made cashew clusters in the Instant Pot with like 3 different varieties of chocolate melted together. They're insane.
Yeah, and then they dry. They become those clusters of chocolate and they were amazing. They're amazing.
Yep. Why are we not doing Workflow Wednesday at your house? That's the question.
Yeah, it smells incredible.
Yeah, we have some leftovers in here. Y'all need to come over. So
we have these really cool brochures that we're delivering about our wedding experience, and then we packaged up our goodies in these real sweet little boxes and took them to vendors this morning, and along with one of our personal family Christmas cards, and made connections, saw people face to face, and
give hugs, and
just
you didn't just send them a DM on Facebook? That wasn't good enough?
Maintaining relationships.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
By the way, for everybody who is listening in, this is a video presentation as well, video show as well. We are on Facebook Live, facebook.com/photogsedit for Workflow Wednesday, which naturally is a workflow focused or workflow centric episode that we do on occasion, once or twice a month. And we are talking about efficient workflow most specifically, but I think next time we should just do a Workflow Wednesday. And Rich, you can be like some of those old cooking shows, and make the salted caramel Rice Krispie treats.
Yeah, in fact, I wish. I know this is a video and audio, but man, you're gonna wish you could smell these things. They're amazing. In fact, I wish we could just take one and just be eating it on during this video and just be making just the faces we would make.
Everyone would hate us.
They'll be like,
everyone would hate us.
I feel like I know what these things taste like just by the faces you guys are making.
And the moans and the groans.
This is
awkward.
good.
Don't make any more. I'm like one of those people, like if I can hear you eating, we have a problem. I can't. No.
All right. With your kids, are you always reminding them to chew with their mouth shut? Is that what you do, Heather?
We haven't had a big issue with that. I feel like our kids naturally do that.
No.
Okay. I think because
naturally do not do that. They don't chew with their mouth open.
Right. That hasn't been a big issue.
No.
I mean, we have other issues, but that hasn't been one of them. That's
one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah. I was going to say that Ren has jumped on and said, hi, friends. And Stacy has jumped on and said hello from Denver.
Okay. Ren, hi, Ren, and hi, Stacy.
Yeah, we can't even talk about snow.
I know.
Denver. We got some snow. We got a little slight dusting around Chattanooga. So.
Yeah, I was sending pictures kind of excitedly to Jill yesterday. She was at work, and literally, it was like this tiny little dusting. First of all, sleet, and then we started getting a little bit of snow.
Yeah,
and it is quite laughable. Schools ended up being delayed 2 hours. We do have buses that have to climb mountains, so I get it. But nonetheless, it is quite entertaining. But it is a beautiful day, blue sky, and I don't know about you guys, but it makes a big difference. More energy, just like felt energy. It's just it's so invigorating. But one of these days, I may just move to Arizona so I can see sun all the time. I could deal with the heat.
Arizona.
Yeah, I feel energized just because being with you guys.
So Rich just one-upped you.
I was going to say that's really the better thing to say. So we were actually talking about this off air before we started recording. We normally kind of start these episodes with industry news, which really kind of we kind of went down the rabbit hole of something more entertaining than actually helpful. But Rich, please tell the story. Somehow I missed this in the news.
I cannot believe you missed it. It's made major. In fact, in the comment section of people watching, I want to know if y'all heard this or have not heard this. Okay, but this week in Miami, in a conceptual art, program auction, maybe there was this piece of work that literally was just a real banana duct taped to a white wall. Like just Nathan, say something so I'll go to you. So see.
I'm holding up a real banana as Rich was saying, just to kind of play along. Please.
So this artist turned that 49-cent fruit, and this conceptual art sold for $120,000. It's literally a banana duct taped to the wall, guys. Just if you haven't seen it, just look for it. It's all over the news.
Okay, but is the wall?
is the wall like removable from whatever gallery? So how are they selling it? What does that mean?
Wow. Wow. So the banana comes with, you get the duct tape with it, maybe?
Yeah, I guess you get, maybe. I don't know how that works. All I know is that a couple of days later, it made such big news that everybody was like, there was lines of people wanting to get their picture, like doing a selfie with this banana on the wall behind them. Yeah. Apparently you could just get right next to it, And there was this other conceptual artist that came up.
It sounded really funny when you said, apparently you can get right next to it.
You get right next to this banana. It's amazing.
Amazing.
Up close and personal.
You can actually.
It's an immersive experience.
There's actually a video of this too. There's a video of this that's quite entertaining. This other conceptual artist who pretended he was going to get his picture taken with this banana, and then he literally turned around, took the banana off the wall, opened it up and started eating it, and then it showed like the aftermath of like the museum curator coming around. Just her mind was blown about what just happened, and they escorting him out, and they're still debating whether or not they're going to prosecute this guy for eating a 40-cent banana in a museum. And so we will. I'm sorry, it's because someone said it was worth $120,000. Is worth $120,000. So it's literally just it is like there's actually an article on Petapixel. It says why I'm hanging up my cameras to become a conceptual artist, and there's been a lot of really interesting discussion about this, like just art and
the subjectivity of it.
Yes, and especially
100%.
this conceptual art, just and how much it can sell for it is absolutely insane. So
I love the fact that this guy came along and ate it though and called it art, because it just shows how absolutely ridiculous the whole thing is to begin with.
Yes.
But on a slightly more serious note, because I obviously don't want to minimize the significance of said art for photographers listening, and I realize that we give a certain amount of significance to the so-called art that we create or the imagery that we create, but we have to keep in mind that at the end of the day, we really can't take ourselves too seriously, because all of this is art because we say that it's art. Mm-hmm. It's important because we say it's important. It's ultimately what we make of it. And that's, I think, important just as a life principle to keep everything in a bit of perspective. Mm-hmm. I love that guy went and ate it. And I hope he doesn't get prosecuted, because I know how hilarious we are as human beings. Yeah.
Apparently they just replaced it with another banana, and it was worth the same amount. I mean, like, apparently it's just like they have it in their contract that it can be replaced, and it's it's the idea that's the art, not the physical banana and whatnot. So again, like so it's I guess no harm, no foul. I guess I don't know. Yeah. But they probably definitely have red ropes around it now, so people actually can't touch it. Probably. I don't know how they
the selfie won't be as up close and personal.
Exactly.
Many thoughts going through my mind right now.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. But I could save us a trip to Miami by just taping a banana to our wall right here.
You should, behind you, like right over, like, so it creates kind of a halo over Heather's head in the background there. I think that'd be kind of brilliant if you did that.
I really wish we would have thought to do that before this went live.
We could have put a banana about right there. I mean, like that right there is worth $120,000.
I mean, why not make it 150 or 200?
Right.
Now you're talking.
The sky's the limit.
I like the way you think, Nathan.
Entrepreneurship, man.
Boom.
Although there is a lot of really cool art that comes out of Miami. There's a really cool place down there called the Wynwood Art District. And we've driven around down there from time to time. And they have the artists from all over the world come down there and just do these massive murals on the sides of the buildings down there in this real kind of rundown industrial district. And I highly recommend it. If anybody's down in that area, the Wynwood Art District in Miami is super, super cool. And constantly evolving, because I think that they only keep the art up for maybe a year or two at a time, and then they'll have a new artist come in. And so, speaking of art, but that appeals to a wide variety, because there's some crazy art and some like more a little bit more mainstream
or traditionally beautiful art, and so like there's something there for everyone. It's just really cool location. So yeah,
and not far from Miami Beach.
I know.
So
boom, done.
Perfect. Gave him a little shout out then to Wynwood Art Gallery.
Yeah.
Yep. We're also talking about, just as on a slightly more serious note, the Nikon professional services have kind of cut off, or going to be cutting off, their their service, the repair service, at least to the extent with which they were offering it, starting really soon, right? Is that effective immediately for Nikon users?
I think I saw an article saying it was at the end of this year. So I mean,
Okay.
like beginning 2020 is no longer there.
So for Nikon users out there, just you're going to have to give yourself a little bit more time. They're saying at least 2 weeks that you'd be without your camera, whereas in the past you may have been used to a little bit quicker turnaround time. Just work that into or plan that in your calendar because things are changing pretty drastically. I can't imagine, I'm sure it's a cost saving move on their part, but I can't imagine that does a great service for their brand reputation.
Sure. What is this service called for Nikon users? I know for us as Canon users, it's called CPS. It's Canon Professional Services that we use, and we have like a gold standard membership, but I don't know what this service is called for Nikon users.
Let's see here. The report, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So there's no option to renew on March the 31st, 2020. So I guess, till March 31st, I think they're still doing it. So
and it is NPS, it's Nikon Professional Services, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are the benefits for you all with the CPS, with Canon Professional Services? What do you get for that?
Yeah, we have built in
well,
we don't. Well,
it depends on. They have different levels, and depending on how much pro gear you have. So like you literally enter in all the pro gear, and the more like this certain older camera might get 1 point, but the newer cameras get like 4 or 5 points. And so if you get to like 60 points or something like that, you can go to this next level. And so it's but because of that, you can get more cleanings. So you can send your gear in maybe and get them cleaned. And then and if you get repairs, depending on, again, the level that you're on, the repairs could be, 30% off the repairs, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, just a heads up to Nikon users out there, the few of them that may exist still.
Switch to Canon. That's your problem.
I use Nikon my whole wedding photography career, and I absolutely enjoy it. Still really like the layout, the ergos of the buttons and menu system. But anyway, that aside, for Nikon users, make sure that you plan if you need any repairs coming up here before you get into next year's busy season.
Yeah. Has Haylee even appeared this whole time? There we go. There she is.
Sorry, I was sharing our video to different Facebook groups, but I did want to comment that Aaron Nelson commented on the banana story and said, "That's funny. Wouldn't it be the consumer who defines what art is and not the creator? I have a hard time thinking of myself as an artist, but there are people that tell me how artistic I am."
Yeah, that's a great perspective. I love that perspective.
I think that's a more realistic perspective, but the ego-driven side of us is those are the people that are calling themselves artists and their work art, and I think that really can get in the way of doing business. And that's a multi-episode topic for another day.
Sure.
But I think it's great to have an example, a story like this that exemplifies how ridiculous we can be, and labeling something art and creating or giving it significance or giving it value. And that guy that came along and ate the banana, I think, is just a perfect.
Or just believing that we, as the artist, have so much inherent value, or we've been established already so much as a valuable commodity as an artist, that we can assign that kind of value to a banana duct taped to a wall. You know what I mean? Like you said, like the ego, not just in the art itself, but in who we are as an artist, that we feel like we would have the authority to be able to say, this thing that I just thought of is worth $120,000.
That's true. I love Aaron's perspective on that.
But I think, like you said, Nathan, I think the most valuable thing about this whole thing is, again, just the conversations it brings up. And I love the conversations to both sides, to just hear, oh, that's so dumb. And then be like, hey, wait a second, let's just bring this around and like
play devil's advocate.
Yeah. So which is again, just, I think it's really fascinating. Kind of takes us out a little bit out of our comfort zone and allows us to like talk through, our own concepts and again, as artists. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, I appreciate you sharing it. As entertaining and amusing as it was also enlightening and thought-provoking, as you point out. So, but we are here to talk about workflow, and we're just a little bit of a different type of workflow conversation today. We've been alluding to this in previous Workflow Wednesday episodes, but Photographers Edit, my editing company, and of course, Haylee does digital marketing for Photographers Edit, went through a bit of a tough spell this fall. And we'll kind of summarize it here in just a second. But through that experience, we certainly learned a lot about what it meant to effectively handle a bit of a nightmare situation where ultimately we screwed up as a company. It affected the level of service that we were giving our clients. Clients got upset. Many clients walked away. And through that all, we learned quite a bit about how to handle a difficult situation such as this. And that a lot of it revolves around the idea of the significance of communication, how we go about communicating. And so we thought as a Workflow Wednesday episode, we could talk a little bit about our so-called workflow, handling this situation, this bit of customer service nightmare, which ultimately, again, was on us, how we went about handling that effectively, partially for the sake of transparency for some of our Photographers Edit clients, but then also that so that hopefully some of our listeners might be able to learn a bit about how they, or at least get some ideas about how they might handle a tough situation with their company. Because there's always a risk as a business owner that something goes wrong, whether we were proactive in planning and taking care of our company or not. In this case, we've got a really hardworking production team and customer service team and marketing team. I mean, this wasn't a result of us just sit around twiddling our thumbs, watching Netflix, eating chocolate. We missed out on some things, and we learned through the process, through the experience. But nonetheless, we had some upset clients as a result, understandably so. So the question at that point is, how do you go about addressing the issue, managing customer interaction and expectations, and ultimately trying to come out on the other side of it in a very proactive and positive way? And so we thought we would share a little bit about that. Very simple summation of the situation. This started all kind of going down around the first part of, I guess it was about the first part of October, Haylee?
Yeah, it was October.
We had planned this year for about 15% growth and had planned capacity for this. But we ran into some personnel issues, which then tied into what we later realized were some pretty significant issues with the algorithms in our administrative system that tracked capacity, what we could actually handle on a day-to-day basis as far as the influx of images being submitted to us. And we process millions of images a year. So we're processing, we're doing editing or offering editing services at a very, very large scale. And one of the things that we pretty much never talk about is the significance of this algorithm that is enabling us to effectively managing the incoming work, delegate it to our team, get that work done and on time, in some cases faster than others, because our premium membership, we say that we'll finish orders of 800 images or less in 3 business days. For our non-premium members or non-scheduled orders, there is an estimated turnaround time given to those clients. And so we have varying turnaround times as well. We're doing this with ultimately thousands of photographers and millions of images. So again, we never talk about the logistics of all that's going on behind the scenes. It's not a very sexy topic, and most photographers, most of our clients don't really care, and it's really not their business to care. But there's a lot of that goes on behind the scenes. And what we realized was that our internal system had fallen short. The algorithms, or lack thereof, led us to a place where we were not able to handle incoming capacity. It affected turnaround times. Orders were delayed. Naturally and totally understandably, our clients got very upset. And because we were not only hurting their experience, but it's also affecting the experience that they're providing to their clients as well. And so it was a tough situation to be in. But what I'd like to do is just kind of run down some key points that we realized that, again, center around the significance of communication, talking a little bit about how we handled the situation as it went down. In some ways good, other ways not so ideally, and share what we learned from it. And again, hopefully this will not only create a little bit of transparency and a little bit of understanding particularly for our Photographers Edit clients, but it'll also maybe shed a little bit of light on areas that you can proactively address in your business that will enable you to offer a better customer experience for your clients. So do we want to just kind of take these point by point, Haylee? And then I'd love to not only get Haley's perspective, because she's obviously involved in social media, and we had a lot of, needless to say, a lot of feedback and commentary from social media when all this stuff was happening. And Haylee was managing a lot of that. But I'd also like to get Rich and Heather's perspective on this, not only as clients of Photographers Edit, but then also as photographers, because they are running a photography business. They run into situations occasionally where they have to manage a tough situation. And so I'd love to kind of get your take on each of these points. But let me just jump in instead of continuing to ramble on. But really, the first point that I noted, Haylee and I were kind of discussing what we should address in this series. One of the ideas that we talked about was the significance of removing ego from the very get-go. Now, I think personally, and it was funny that we were just talking about this, but I think removing ego from the picture, from the so-called conversation at hand, is absolutely vital for us to, and I'm going to go ahead and mention the second point here, empathize with a client who is frustrated with the service, the level of service that we are offering them, or the lack of service that we are offering them. And I feel like it enables us to, instead of focusing on ourselves and the problems that we're facing and the frustrations that we're facing and all the issues that we're dealing with behind the scenes that, again, really the client doesn't care about, we don't need to bother them with. We set that aside. We put ourselves in the perspective of the client, or in the shoes of the client, in this case, photographers, in order to, before we even start communicating, to communicate with the right mindset. And I'd love to get your take first, Haylee, on this, especially based on your interactions with clients on social media through this.
Yeah, I think part of what I can completely understand, because I'm a Photographer's Edit client myself. And I didn't get any special treatment, just heads up for anyone wondering. But to me, it was very much like, how do you deliver bad news without upsetting someone who is already going to be upset, whether it's because their images are delayed by a week or whatever the case might be. At the time of everything happening, we were still trying. I mean, a lot of people don't realize we were trying to nail down everything, understanding what it was that was actually happening before emails, like any communication was going out. We still had to figure that out and understand, like, what does the turnaround time look like? What can we give our clients as an expectation? And that's when we were getting Facebook comments and emails. I mean, it was only a couple of Facebook comments at that time in the very beginning. And then it was a ton of emails on specific orders. And that's when we came to realize that it was the capacity tracking issue. And for me, that was a huge piece of, like, understanding as an employee of Photographers Edit what it is that's happening and how can we fix this.
Yeah, what do you think about this idea, Rich and Heather? I mean, have you ever run into a situation where a client is upset and you may be even justified in whatever the situation might be, but again, kind of the ego speaks up and you naturally want to get defensive and protect yourself and explain how actually you're not in the wrong, even if you're not. Have you found yourself in situations like that where you just kind of had to set that aside and empathize with the client in the way that you began communication with them?
Yeah, I feel like
that has never happened. In 10 years of running our business, that's never happened to us.
Yeah, I think that that this kind of situation has happened to us a few times. Thankfully,
actually pretty recently too.
Yep. And actually, we've been on the receiving end of a customer service situation
very recently as well.
And so I think that as someone who is running a business and as someone who is a consumer experiencing other businesses, being customers and clients of them, you're in a very unique place to understand this from a couple different levels. I think that on one hand, it can help us to become a better consumer, understanding what other small businesses are going through and the humanity of the situation, because companies are run by groups of people and people are humans. And as much as we live in a world today that is technologically savvy and that we can plan for so much and we can understand so much, and there's complicated algorithms like you talked about, there still has to be room for error and there has to be room for understanding. And so we just ordered our Christmas cards from a company that will remain nameless for the moment, because overall we've had good experiences with this company, but this particular experience this year was a negative one, in that when we received our order, we received 100 cards instead of 150. Well, this doesn't just affect us on a personal level. We also had scheduled, like I was talking about earlier, meetups with vendors, and we have clients on our list that these are going to go out to. So this is both business and personal for us. And not only are we leaving town this weekend for the next couple of weeks through the remainder of the new year, but so the cards didn't come. I get on the phone and I make a phone call. And again, I'm approaching this as a consumer and as a business owner. So I'm like very willing to be kind and interact with these people in a very personable way, while still saying like, there's been a mistake and we need you to correct it, and quickly if possible, because we're going to be leaving town. And this thing that we needed from you, this mistake that you made, will no longer be relevant if we can't get it here in the next week or so. The problem is, I didn't get an apology. There was no, oh, I'm so sorry for that mistake. That we really apologize for that. It is amazing how far an apology will go. It is amazing for a reasonable person who's ever been in a position where they had to apologize for anything, which I'm hoping is 100% of people. An apology goes so far. So when I think of the mistakes that we've made in our business, our authentic apologies and open communication and just that moment of vulnerability, which I think goes along with what you just said, is removing ego from the situation, not acting like we have it all together and we're incapable of making mistakes, but just acknowledging like, I am so sorry. That would have gone a long way with this company.
In fact, the crazy thing is that no apology does the exact opposite. It doesn't keep us neutral.
Yeah.
It actually makes us angrier. Hey, wait a second. You have made a mistake and you're not acknowledging the mistake at all.
Right.
And we've paid for a service.
Yeah, we paid for a service. And I don't feel like you even, I'm getting this feel that you don't even care. Like we're maybe not a nuisance, but I mean just show that, hey, you're like, hey, this is a mistake. We are totally on it. We're going to get these out to you as soon as possible. That would just have been neutralized everything. And we've been like, okay, we can breathe now. They are on it. But Heather had to call twice. And then even 2 phone calls, still like
no sense of urgency, no apology.
Nothing.
You know, and I don't know if that's because they're in self-preservation mode, afraid that if they admit that they made a mistake, they're going to lose a customer. But I can tell you that sort of thing works against a company. Because again, unless you're dealing with an extremely unreasonable person, an apology goes a long way, and a sense of urgency and some kind of communication, whether it's email, social media. We very much appreciated the video that you put out, Nathan. You may be about to talk about this, I'm not sure, but just that personal video that came as Photographers Edit clients, that goes a long way to help people understand the humanity behind the business and the fact that there is no infallible company in the world, you know, and seeing a face, seeing an apology, hearing an apology, you know, for reasonable people, that's enough to say like, we'll continue to be loyal to this company. They're willing to own their mistakes and they're willing to do whatever it takes to work to correct them in the future and use this as a learning opportunity, you know?
Yeah.
But fortunately, we got some feedback like that from some users who really appreciated the fact that we were, the attitude with which I was responding, or that we were responding with. And I mean, I couldn't help but empathize. I mean, I know what it's like to be a photographer, and I can only imagine what it's like to be in their situation that we've put them in, which is they're expecting to be able to deliver images to their clients. And suddenly we're telling them, sorry, not only are they not ready, but they're not going to be ready for another week or another 2 weeks. And this is what the turnaround time looks like right now. And this is kind of the direction that we're going. In some cases, not even being able to give them a definite answer. That's a really tough place to be in. So I felt terrible. But expressing that, sharing that, and to your point, and maybe Haylee, we can put the video in the show notes, just this is an example, not that, in fact, again, as I mentioned earlier, and we'll talk about this, we fell short even in some of the ways that we handled the situation, But if anybody is curious as to what it looks like to create some personal communication that is more than just text, because sometimes a lot can get lost in translation. If you're just reading a text email, it can come across one way or another, maybe a little bit too cold, maybe a little bit too egotistical, or whatever the thing is. So I created a video and I posted it to our Facebook group, and then also we sent it out, a link to it in an email. And it was basically me just talking to the camera and saying, look, I feel you, I hear you, we screwed up, we know it, we're working on it, promise we're working our tail off to get this fixed for you. And hopefully that made a big impact. But it's important in order for us to put ourselves, I think it's important that we talk about philosophy before we talk about action steps. And so if we're going to talk about how to go about communicating with clients in a situation where we've screwed up and it's affecting their experience with us, we first have to put ourselves in the right mentality, which is to remove ego and to put ourselves in our client's shoes, to try to at least try to understand what it feels like to be in their position right now. And then we can begin communicating more effectively with them. So, but Heather, you pointed something out, which is the significance of the apology, and related to that is my next point, and that is the importance of acknowledging the actual issue. And this is one of the places where we kind of fell short. Haylee talked or alluded to this earlier, but when this all went down, there was kind of a frantic behind the scenes conversations trying to, and interactions and actions, trying to figure out what was actually the root issue or issues for this particular problem. And in that process, and what I explained to Haylee, I think it was Haylee or maybe our team the other day, but nonetheless, I didn't want to jump to communicate too quickly with our clients at the time by sending out a big email blast without actually being able to give them information. My concern was if we sent an email and say, hey, first of all, we're sorry. We know there's some delays. We're trying to figure this out. I knew that we were going to get a bunch of email responses back, and customer service was going to have to go through and handle all these tickets, answering or still not being able to answer questions from clients, which was, we got your email, we hear you, but what's going on and when will I get my order? And there would still be a lot of questions. So I was trying to wait to give or to send out an email blast to everybody to update them until we actually had helpful information. Because I just didn't want there to be unnecessary back and forth via email. I realize in hindsight that probably wasn't the best suggestion. In fact, we were having a team meeting the other day, and one of our customer service reps, Jessica, who's been with the company for a long time now, she brought this up and highlighted this, the significance of going ahead and sending out email communication next. If we were to ever run into a situation even close to this, and we've already made changes in our backend systems, spoiler alert, to address so much of what has caused this problem. So a situation like this is not going to happen again. But nonetheless, if we were to ever run into a situation where we have a lot of clients upset again, I should more quickly send out email communication for the significance of this word acknowledgement, acknowledging the issue. Yes, apologizing, but acknowledging the issue and beginning to manage expectations. In this case, is simply as, hey, look, we know there's an issue. We feel terrible. We are frantically working behind the scenes to get to the root of the problem so that we can address the issue and get back to normal. Wanted to create some awareness and let everybody know. Something as simple as that. That's something that we could have done a little bit more proactively. What are your thoughts on that? And let's actually start with you, Rich and Heather. Did you feel like with the communication that you saw from photographers, did you feel like it could have gone out sooner? Does it make sense to wait until you have more information? I mean, I know you have kind of multiple perspectives here. So
Exactly.
Yeah, I think no communication just leaves room for speculation and assumptions. And
that's a great way to put it.
And so the longer there is between the problem and the apology or the communication of what's happening, then there's silence between that. Then normally, just as we as humans assume the worst, we assume something tragic, like is this the end? Like you don't have any information, therefore you're assuming the house is burning down. So I mean, and so
why do we do that, by the way? Because I am so bad about that still. I have to work on it. Like not to project the worst potential situation.
I don't know why that is. I mean, like,
we can psychoanalyze that later. Yeah.
Haley, why do we do this? You know?
Well, you know.
So I mean, so that was I guess the biggest thing as far as like us just
the first email that came, you didn't pay a ton of attention to because you thought it was.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but it didn't affect me at the time because I didn't have any weddings to and so I literally I didn't read it. Sorry, Nathan. And
I don't think we knew there was a problem.
I didn't think there was a problem at first, and then we tried to submit a wedding, and we're like, "Wait, what is going on?
The sky is falling.
Why can we not submit any images? Why can't we submit a?
Then suddenly
order?
we looked.
I'm like, oh, wait a second, something happened a couple of days ago. And so then that's when I went back to the email and read it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But I love the way that you summed that up, Rich, that no communication leads to assumption or speculation. And as we pointed out, we know how our brains work in that scenario, and it's not good for anybody. So I think that's a great summation of why there needs to be more immediate, more proactive communication. What were you going to say, Haley?
Just a quick email to our video, just like saying, hey, guys, the sky's not falling. We are figuring this out, and we just don't know yet. So it's just kind of like don't email our team because we don't know what to say, but we will find out and we will let you know as soon as possible. We're in this together. That type of thing. We're like, oh, okay, that just kind of like just eases that tension.
That's a great point. Haley, were you going to say something too?
I was going to add to that because we when you're looking at how to communicate with whoever it is that you have to talk to or deliver news to or whatever the case might be. One thing that we realized after, because we sent out that email, the very first one, it was a text-based email and it had hundreds of questions came back in. And that's why we developed the video. We I think it's really important, and it's something we learned too, is like text can be interpreted however the consumer wants to interpret it, whether we're coming from a place of empathy or a place of dictatorship of this is the way things are and it's how it's going to be. Yeah. And I mean, if you go into reread the email, it could have been interpreted so many different ways. And I think I had no part in telling Nathan to make the video. That was all on him, but I applaud you for it because I think it was needed in order to communicate what it was that we were trying to say and explain what was going on and that we're not just ignoring the problem.
Yeah, there were a few responses that we got on Facebook, and this is really probably the main reason why I made the video ultimately, that were extremely combative. And again, I don't in any way minimize the significance of how these photographers are feeling, whether they responded very well or not. I understand the frustration. I've been there. But they were very combative in nature and responding to me when I was in this Facebook thread as though I was out to get them or out to hurt them, which is, I realized that our service fell short and it affected their business. Again, not in any way minimizing that, but at the same time, I felt their pain as much as I could and felt terrible behind the scenes, had endless conversations with, my team about how terrible I felt, how terrible we felt, how we wanted to address this. We understood the frustration that was being expressed. And so ultimately we were on the photographer's side. And that was part of what I said in that video that we sent out, which is, hear me, please, please, please hear me. We know we screwed up, but I'm on your side. I promise we are on your side and we're trying to fix this issue. And I think Haley's right. A lot can get lost in translation when you're talking about text, whether it's a simple text message or an email or otherwise, to actually see somebody's eyes, to hear the tone of their voice. You can get a sense for the genuine nature or not of somebody's communication in a video message like that. And I think that's where the power of that lies. So I don't want to stay on this too long or harp on this particular point too long, but that was the significance of that. And I love Rich's point about how important it is to communicate proactively and immediately. And that's something that we definitely learned from this, and we'll do if we ever run into anything even comparable again. We will certainly be a bit more proactive in that regard. The other thing, and it's related to this acknowledgement of the issue, is the kind of the reasons for the issue. And when Haylee and I were talking about this, one of the things I said to her is the last thing that we want is for people to think that us giving a reason for why something is happening comes across as an excuse, right? If I'm having a bad experience with the company, I don't need them to tell me that there's an issue with their software and the algorithms to manage, my orders that are coming in. I just want my order, period. Like, I don't care about the logistics, just make it happen. And so knowing how I feel about that, I don't want to be that guy sending out an email to our customers going into boring detail about what's going on behind the scenes and what caused the issue. That being said, Haylee made a point, which is giving them some detail about what is actually going on behind the scenes, lending a little bit of perspective to the conversation could actually be helpful. What that balance looks like, or where the line is between too much information that's just irrelevant and boring and not helpful, and enough detail to at least give them perspective, I think it's going to vary from situation to situation. I think that you're also, because it's hard for us to understand. We are also a small business. We're photographers. Almost every person we interact with has been, a bride of ours, where we have spent. They know my personality. We've done a gaming session together. I've been to their, if I haven't shot their wedding, I'm probably going to pretty soon shoot their wedding. We have had some interaction. They kind of know my personality. From you guys, it's more of like there's a anonymous corporation, not an individual, and so when there's a corporation involved, like you said, like it's but you're dealing with multiple people on both sides. There's a lot of people behind the scenes, photographers at it, but there's also a lot of customers as well that's never even met you in person, so when you deal with multiple people, you deal with multiple people's personalities, and so some of those people may like all those details, and some are like, I don't care, just get my stuff. And then you have to deal with not just individuals, but you have to like deal with those people's personalities and their egos or their business and their pain on different fronts. Like some people want I'll get it done, and some people are like, I am so sorry. Just depending on that person, people's personalities. And so
right. And I was even thinking that when you were saying that some people were really combative, I mean, I just immediately thought, like, that's just their stress talking. Like, that's just people, you know what I mean? Like, that's just like any company can make a mistake and get the brunt of someone's frustration when the issue itself isn't actually going to ruin that person's life. It's just their level of stress talking,
It's amazing what stress will do to you.
And that's the hard part about running a business for me, is that at the end of the day, even if you do your very best, even if you keep your mistakes to a minimum, even if you put everything in place to try to avoid making mistakes, there will be mistakes along the way. And you're at the mercy of people's understanding and empathy and compassion and forgiveness and all of those things. And so, and the thing that is hardest for me in the situations that we've had over the years is that some of them have resolved and everything's been, great after the fact, with a little communication and some apology. But that hasn't been the case every time. And that's what hurts me. That's what kills me. It's like, you can do your best. And at the end of the day, in the world that we're living in, you can't always please everyone. And I think that that's what's difficult for people with my personality. I'm a people pleaser. I want people to be happy. If there's difficulty or friction, if there's something that I need to apologize, I want to know, I want to be able to apologize, and I want everything to be rainbows and unicorns when it's all said and done, and sometimes we've been able to get to that place. And then other times we haven't. And so, but we try as hard as we can, so your video probably was a massive leap in the right direction. And then there might just still be some people at the end of the day who are frustrated or who choose to leave. And that's when we have to be willing to say, I've done everything that I can. Now let's take steps to try to prevent this in the future. And I hate that some people decided to be done,
but not just, not just with people's stress, but I mean, like, I think just in today's society, especially with social media, there's this idea of being able anonymity of like where you can, people can make comments and be really mean on the internet, but in real life they're like super nice, like the anonymity of the internet can kind of give credence or let this different kind of personality come forth, where like if they might have been really mean to you on the internet, but if they were talking face to face, they've been like, oh yeah, that's completely fine, no problem at all. Like it's just a really strange dichotomy we live in today, as far as like how of just the internet and how people communicate over the internet is
people
really,
not having to see the way that their words affect another human being, and not having to have the courage to say things in person too,
Yep.
Yeah, I think that highlights a really important piece of understanding, like from the business owner side, of there are going to be people that do that, and you have to realize that your value is not placed in how they feel about you. And the reason I say that is because for the most part, I had really nice responses to my inbox. Like a lot of the emails did come from me. So I did get some of the feedback, but every once in a while you do have someone that's really upset and they do take it out on you. And for me, I have the same type of personality, and I like for everyone to be happy, and it like depresses you. And I feel like as business owners, we have to look at if someone does come to you in that sense, it's not like your entire value is not placed on that. Because I know I've had like discussions with customer service on, they're not yelling at you. They're not mad at you. They're just mad at the situation.
Right.
And so I think that on both our customer service end and on a photographer's, managing their own customer service, is just an important reminder.
Yeah. I think
and speaking of reminders, it was a good reminder for me even too, because there have been times where I've responded emotionally to people because I'm upset, but it becomes this kind of, it doesn't need to be personal. And I can't stress enough, because if we have any photographers edit clients listening in, they're like, how in the world could you be bothered by the fact that we were upset? Not even an issue. 100% understand why any of our clients were upset. What's a little tough is where it becomes this almost personal attack. And that's, but if nothing else, for me, it was a good reminder that, okay, if I have a conversation with a company or an individual because I'm frustrated, ultimately I need to simply engage with them, first of all, with the amount of empathy that I would expect in a reverse situation. And just make it a simple back and forth kind of fact-finding conversation, rather than this attack just because I happen to be stressed in the moment. Like Rich pointed out, we have, stress does crazy things to the way that we engage with people. And like, I'm cringing as I'm thinking about it, but I've certainly been guilty of that. And we just have to remember to keep that in check, because at the end of the day, it's most things aren't, as much as we might feel it in the moment, most things aren't the end of the world. And we don't need to react as such. But I know we have just a few minutes left. I want to keep moving here. Just very briefly, the next point that I made, that almost seems obvious, I guess, at this point, but to create clear expectations. I will say that we were slow in communication initially for the reasons that I gave earlier. Nonetheless, we should have been a little bit quicker, and we've certainly learned that lesson from this. But following that, once we actually started sending email communication out, we pretty proactively managed expectations. Now, it wasn't that there weren't still frustrated responses, because the initial communication of expectations about where our service currently stood, what our turnaround times look like right now, how much longer this was going to go on, how much longer it might take before we were back to normal. We initially created a certain expectation, which we unfortunately ended up having to send a second email out and correcting and making it even longer. And that was obviously not a great place to put our clients. And there was some frustration with that. But nonetheless, we at least gave them or created some awareness around where we were at, what we were working on, where we were going. And it's really important just to keep in mind that you are doing that very proactively. And this is actually something that we're working on in a more positive note, or in a more positive light, that Haylee and I were even just talking about today, the significance of more effectively managing our clients' experience going into 2020, just in something as simple as the onboarding process, making sure that our clients understand what it is that we offer, how to go about getting that service, it's so important that we proactively manage our clients' expectations, and that can't be stressed enough. It seems obvious, but I just wanted to at least make that point. One of the things that we did do go ahead, Haylee.
I was going to say too, another thing that we've more actively done here in the last few, 2 weeks, I guess, has been taking client feedback more seriously. Because I know a lot of people had suggestions or came to us with why can't this be fixed? And I know on a personal level, you're having conversations to actually create ways of adjusting our capacity tracker or whatever that might be to help our clients based on what their needs are, along with scheduling orders and all of that. So I think opening up that communication to this podcast episode as well has been, sorry, that was loud, has been a big thing that we've started doing more of here in the last week or two.
Yeah, and I'll add to that just for the sake of clarity. It's not that we weren't taking clients' feedback or suggestions seriously before. I think I would reword that and say that we've become even more proactive in reaching out for that feedback.
Right.
We did get some feedback in the process of, as we were doing what I was just talking about, setting expectations, where we were at, the changes that we were making behind the scenes, at least 1 or 2 changes in the workflow that we were having to put in place to go along with the change in the algorithms behind the scenes. We were getting some frustration but simultaneously some kind of constructive feedback. Hey, why don't you do it this way instead? Because if you do it like this is going to put us in a tough spot. So having those conversations, and to your point, Haylee, kind of opening up the door for those types of conversations, letting our clients know that we actually want that feedback and that we take that seriously. This is something that we've done honestly for quite some time at Photographers Edit, and it's made a big difference. Even in the webinars, we'll get feedback in these webinars that we do for Photographers Edit that have gone into the user interface that we've designed for Photographers Edit. So we take feedback seriously already. More recently, we've been more proactive in kind of reaching out for that. I'm going to be having ongoing conversations with Photographers Edit clients in the next month or so, especially with regards to refining our messaging as we go into 2020. We're going to be doing something similar with Milu as well, our new company. So that proactive effort at getting feedback is really important for the sake of understanding how our clients feel, and so that we can ultimately manage their expectations more effectively. And so that's really important. The other thing too that we did simultaneously was, and this is, it frustrated some people, but we had to do it. We actually stopped taking on new business until the issue was resolved. We had our kind of core clients that are using us, and the last thing that we needed to do is, in addition to the frustrations they were experiencing with the service that was falling short, to then also bring on new clients in the process who, it wouldn't make sense anyway to bring them on in that situation, but then to further kind of convolute or get in the way of our existing clients' orders being processed. Mm-hmm. That's the last thing that we needed to do. We needed to show priority to our existing clients instead of trying to get new business. And that might seem obvious to a lot of people, but it's a move that we made. And I think it was the right move because we need to focus on taking care of our existing clients. It is, at the end of the day, more about our relationships with our clients, those who have been loyal to us, than it is about just trying to make an extra buck. And that was certainly not important to us in this situation. We wanted to make sure that we address the issue so that we could give a better service to our existing clients as soon as we could. And so we did. We stopped taking new accounts, new premium memberships. We cut that off, and we in fact even stopped taking orders from non-premium members, because the majority of clients who place orders with Photographers Edit now are premium members, which I love. I love that show of commitment. I love that it means that we can give them a better overall experience normally, outside of the situation, of course. And so we cut off orders from non-premium members just so we could focus on our core clients, our premium members. And now we've turned that back on in the last couple of weeks and are allowing new accounts again. So it's important to keep perspective that you're not out to try to get new business. When you've got a problem internally, address that first, cut off new business if you need to, before you turn it back on and start taking on new clients. Make sure you address the issue first. And that's something that we did.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that, Rich and Heather, here as we're kind of finishing up
I can't believe we're already here at our hour mark, because I feel like there's more that could be said.
I have so much to say.
Well, we have a few different mistakes we've made over the years, but they've been very different types of mistakes that yield different learning experiences and things that we've gleaned. And so I feel like it could be another we could keep talking, but I feel like you summed it up really well. And the points that you made were, I feel like, the most critical ones, so.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I do want to, as Haylee was alluding to earlier, I do want to make sure that we keep the door open for conversation. I mean, this is really standard for PE anyway, but just want to reemphasize how there is certainly that we welcome communication. So anybody listening in or watching, you want to send an email to Nathan or Haylee, Haylee @photographersedit.com. If you have additional thoughts, suggestions, we are in planning mode for 2020 and on various levels. And we want to make sure that, we've come out of this difficult time now, but we are ready to not only just simply come out of it, but up the ante for 2020 on, again, multiple levels. And so if you have feedback, suggestions, ways that we can improve the service overall for you, or you just want to have a conversation about what the last couple of months were like, that's fine too.
If you're unreasonably mad, you can send it to Heather. If you have any choice cuss words, or if you created new cuss words because of the situation,
I can promise that I will try my best to be your friend. Yeah, I will try to diffuse the situation. I am so sorry.
Yeah. So.
For everybody listening, and this is, as I mentioned earlier, being broadcast live on Facebook, facebook.com/photogsedit. And that video will be there in our library. So you can go back and watch that if you want to. The audio version is going to go out later on today on the Bokeh Podcast feed. If you, in any of your favorite podcast apps, you can find us, Bokeh Podcast. And you'll hear the audio version there by 6 p.m. Eastern today. And Haylee, you were telling me earlier, we don't have another Workflow Wednesday episode scheduled for this year, correct? So the next one will be in January?
Yes, we will. I'll announce some dates in January and February over the coming weeks and kind of put that out on social media.
Cool. And you know what? I'll go ahead and throw this out there. If there are any of you are listening in or watching, if you have some element of workflow related to running a photography business that you feel like you could contribute some value to our audience about, then we'd love for you to just shoot us an email. And you can do that. Just send Haylee an email, Haylee @photographersedit.com. The key thing here is being able
I apologize. We need to spell Haylee's name. If you want to say Haylee @photographersedit.
He just did a minute ago.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. H-A-Y.
When he was talking about feedback.
Oh, okay. I apologize. You know what? That was feedback for that. And I'm angry that you didn't spell out her name. Every time you say her name, you got to spell it out. So.
It is Haylee @photographersedit.com.
There you go.
But shoot Haylee an email if you've got an idea, not just an idea for a topic. We love to just hang out with people here, but we want to make sure that any guests that we have on the show are ultimately able to add value to our listeners. I always want our listeners to walk away with information that is practical and actionable, whether that's on the Workflow Wednesday series or the Bokeh Podcast. But if you're interested in joining the conversation, shoot Haylee an email and we could talk about that as a possibility. But thank you everybody for listening in, for chiming in. Thank you, Rich and Heather, for hanging out with us today, for your feedback.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, this has been fascinating. I love it.
Cool. And we'll see everybody, I guess, after the new year. So Merry Christmas.
Happy
New Year. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All the things.
Happy New Year.
Chat with you guys soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bokeh Podcast. Will you let us know what you thought by leaving a review of the podcast in iTunes or the Apple Podcast app? And I'd love to hear from you personally with your thoughts about the podcast and suggestions about future topics and guests for the show. My email is nathan@photographersedit.com. The Bokeh Podcast is brought to you by Photographers Edit, custom image editing for the professional photographer. Visit photographersedit.com.